Hey guys, and welcome to Under Construction. Let's make out Bunnies part 7. Alright, so let's check what we finished off with last week. So we've got our instruction screen. We've got our bunnies that pop up in random order. You can tap the odd bunny and get a correct symbol. And if you tap the wrong bunny, you get a cross, okay? And basically just keep looping. You can go back to the menu as well. So I was going to add the timer. There are a couple of other things I want to add, possibly a sound effects button once we add some sound effects, and a timer that counts down so we only get a limited time, so we can't play the game forever. But I thought adding a score would be really important. So what we're going to do is first we're just going to add a text plugin here, and just check it up here. Going to select the color white. I'm going to make this 40 because it's the size that I'll end up using. You can just drag this to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to drag it to about here. What's the width of it? Let's make it like 192 or something. Okay, leave it there. Make it centered. Horizontal alignment center. And we're just going to type in like 000 because we're going to be using numbers for the score. Now, right now, if you click here, you will see that this is where you enter your text. So if you're not using this through code, then you can just type in whatever you want to display. However, if you want to use it through code, we're going to access it through this name here. So I'm just going to change it to text score. And right here you see that currently it's using Arial font, which is right here, okay? And these fonts, because they're device-based, means that they're installed on your computer, and if somebody doesn't have that particular font, it is going to go and use the closest one to that font. Now, they're also quite boring. So new Construct 2 has had web fonts in it for a while. However, Construct 3 brought in integrated web fonts, and there is an article on Construct's blog about it here, okay? And what that means is you can basically get a web font. It's kind of like a newish thing where you can use web fonts for web pages and include them in your code on your site. That way people can see nice funky text without having to have the font on their computer. They're also vector based, so they'll display nicely at different sizes. Sorry guys. And you can do a little bit of reading about it here, but it's actually really cool. So a cool place to find web fonts is Google Fonts. Now if you go to fonts.google.com, you can search around. I'm just going to go straight to the one that I found before, which was called, it's just down here I think. Maybe I'll have to look for it. Yeah, it's down here, Luckiest Guy. I just like the way this looks, nice and chunky, a little bit cartoony. So we're just gonna use the plus symbol to add it, and then we're going to click on this little tab, and as you see, load time fast, all that sort of stuff. It's got a little bit of info. You can just download it with this button here. It's going to download it. Okay, now all I need to do is just show and Finder. It's going to show it on my other screen, so I'm just going to unzip it. Okay, that's all done, and let's get away from here, back in here, and minimize this part. And what we want to do is go onto our fonts folder, right click, and go import fonts, import files, and if you've got a downloads folder, Windows, Mac, whatever, it's going to be where you've downloaded it. Make sure it's unzipped, and then you select the TTF file and go open, and now it's here. Okay, so you just go import, okay, and this folder will now show the font inside. Okay, so what we want to do now is click on this font here, and select these triple dots, and it's going to have a new little selection here, selection box. So it's going to ask you to either pick a local font or pick a web font, which is integrated into the project. You're actually including it with the Construct 3 project, and that means that everybody will see the same thing, which is awesome. So you just select that, okay, and that already looks about 100 times better. So if we type in something like 1, 2, 3, you see that it looks really nice in comparison. Cartoony goes with the look of this, looks cool. So it's also called text score. Okay, so now we're going to go into our e-game event sheet. Now we need a variable called score so we can keep track of the correct bunnies that we've tapped. So we're just going to right click, add global variable, and we're going to name it score. We're going to set it to 0. Now what we want to make sure we do also is at the start of every layout, this gets set once. Okay, these are global variables. When the game loads, these get initialized and they get set once. So once this happens, only once when you load the game. Now if you change the variable anywhere during your code, and then let's say change scenes and come back, let's say if he scored 25, we go back to the menu and come back, start a new game. If we don't change it back to 0, then the score is going to remain at 25. So basically at the start of layout in our game, e-game, we need to reset this score. So add another action, system, set value, score, and we set it to 0. Now I'm just going to drag it at the top here. I like putting these resets at the top because as you see there's a 0.25 second wait because we're doing something to the pop-up info here. So we want to make sure that happens right at the start before any of this stuff. So we've reset it to 0, which is cool. And now all we need to do is over here where we're creating our correct symbol, this is when the correct selection happens, we're going to add to our score. So add another action, system, you can go set value and you can type in set score to score plus 1. That's one way of doing it. Or you can just go something simple like add to score and pick 1. Okay, so there are a couple of different ways of doing it. Again, I'm just going to drag it up here, and now that we've added to our score variable, we can set the score, the text to the variable value, which is at this point going to be like the first time you tap out correct bunny is going to be 1 and so on. So it's going to update it every time. So add another action and text score, set text, it's just down here. Where is it? Here, set text, and we're just going to set it to, you can set it to an actual string, so something like you could type in, I don't know, Lisa or George or something, but we can type in the name of the variable, which is score, and it's just going to update it every time right here. Okay, so add 1 to score and then set the text field to the variable. Okay, let's try this and see if it works. All right, so correct, yeah, 1. All right, nice, it's working. Okay, so as you saw, because I was testing the little text field out and I've typed in 1, 2, 3, not really, doesn't really work with our game. So what we need to do is we just put in a little 0 here, because that's what we want to start with, and that should be fine. Now there's one more issue with the text, so that's going to work correctly, exactly how we want it now. Okay, however, as you see, we haven't set up the anchor for it. So what we need to do now is, this has got the anchor behavior, right? And it's set to viewport left and top. Now we need the anchor behavior on this one as well. And we're just going to go anchor. And for this one here, we're going to go viewport none and top edge viewport top. So it's just going to be like this, none, viewport top, none, none, and it's enabled. So let's tap play and see what happens. Cool, works perfectly. Okay, what did I just see disappearing? Did you just see that? Okay, something we've forgotten to do. So the 0 and the X, sorry, the O and the X, because I remember how I put them on the stage so they preload, because what happens is if you don't have, we're creating these on the fly, right? So every time we tap a bunny, an O or an X will appear above the bunny, but they don't, those symbols don't need to be there before. Now, if you don't have the symbols on the stage and you create them dynamically through code, sometimes there is a tiny little pause as the graphic loads and initializes. So it is better to have them preloaded, have them on the stage somewhere, so the program doesn't have to do the hard work on the fly immediately when you tell it to, and it already knows which image it's loading, etc. So that is perfect. However, you don't want them appearing if someone's got, let's say, an iPad and a slightly wider screen. So what we need to do, one thing we forgot to do last time, is destroy them at the start of the scene. So simple O, destroy, and again drag it up here, and we're going to do the same thing for symbol X, destroy. All right, drag it up here. Let's do that right at the start. Not that it matters, all these things happen at the same time basically. It's only after this part here that you'd have an issue, because it would show for a quarter of a second. Let's try this again. Symbols aren't there. So everything right now is working perfectly as we want it. Cool. Nice. Okay, and now score should reset as well. So now, oh, there's one more issue, I think. Oh, is there? Wait a second. Can we still? Oh yeah, we can still tap the bunnies. Right. So there's one more thing we need to fix. One more little thing that we need to fix. You are able to tap the bunnies at the start of the layout. Okay. How about? I think we've been going for quite a bit today. So what we're going to do is we fixed a couple of things today. We've added the score and the text field and all that sort of stuff. Everything is working nicely. Now I know that I've got this little thing to work on, but let's leave it to next week. I don't want to overload this episode with too much info. Next week we're going to finally get onto the timer bar, and we're going to give us the game a time limit. And maybe I'm going to chuck in a couple of sound effects. I know there's going to be quite a bit of explanation to do with the timer bar, so we'll see how it goes. But we'll also fix this little bug that we've got going on. So I think this should be enough. Don't want to make it too long. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned a little bit about web fonts. You can also use sprite fonts. They're probably more suitable for sprite games, pixel-based games. I like using web fonts because I'm trying to make HD style games with sharp graphics, flat graphics, cartoony graphics, and vector fonts go really well with that. So it really depends on what project you're working on and what you're using. But for this scenario, web fonts, in my opinion, are perfect. All right, I will see you guys in the next episode of Let's Make Odd Bunnies.